Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is part 4 in the series entitled The North Woods of Lower Michigan. I hope you guys are enjoying this series. Please do let me know as ever down below in the comments. If you haven't subscribed to DMT, please do. Your support is more than welcome. And without further ado guys, let's get into tonight's story, part 4 of The North Woods of Lower Michigan. Tears filled my eyes as the voicemail finished. Bitter tears full of sadness and rage. I asked Lena for her keys because I had to be there. I had to see for myself what this monster had done to my partner of 15 years. She told me that I couldn't go, at least not alone, as she scrambled to get into more appropriate attire. As we exited the house, Two Bears was in his rocking chair, looking as if he had never left it. He called out to me as we bounded down the stairs. He said, "John, there's nothing that you can do that will stop this from happening again. Many men and women have come before you trying to stop this beast, all with their hearts torn asunder, and all have failed. There is something that you can do, however. You must keep my granddaughter safe from this beast." I promised him that I would do anything in my power to protect her, and we parted ways. As we sped out of the driveway kicking up rocks, the enormity of the situation came crashing down on me with the force of a freight train. I sobbed deeply, my chest hitching for my lost partner. I had never had children of my own, and Derek was the closest thing to a son I'd ever experienced. As I thought about all the good times that we'd had together, how any time he had a barbecue he would be sure to invite me. I never declined an invite because I loved to spend time with his family, especially his daughters Bella and Addison. When I remembered his daughters, pure, unadulterated rage filled my mind. I knew that they weren't home at this time, as they spent a month this summer with Kirsten's parents in Wisconsin. That was a relief, but still, they are without a father now. As I thought about all the things Bella and Addie would miss because of their father was taken from them, all the daddy-daughter dances, all the tea parties that would now be tragic reminders of a life taken too soon. The thought of their wedding day walking down the aisle by themselves nearly drove me insane. I tried to get past my rage and grief for the man I considered my son, but for the time being, it was firmly in place in my mind and heart. Lena was silent throughout my sobbing and my consequent fit of rage, simply offering her hand for me to hold. As we pulled into Derek's neighbourhood, I could see the red and blue lights from a few streets over. I started to prepare myself for what was about to happen. But I will attest to the fact that you can never really prepare yourself for something of this magnitude. When we pulled up to the tape, there was the usual rubberneckers crowded around the officers posted around the perimeter. The nosy neighbours trying to get a bitter glimpse of what had happened. The thought of Derek being turned into a spectacle for the neighbours nearly set me over the edge. I think Lena sensed this as she stepped away from me towards the crowd. In a surprisingly booming voice, she demanded that the people disperse immediately and show some goddamn respect. With the crowd dispersed, I found the officer in charge and asked him to lead me to the scene. I was in so much harder than I could have ever imagined. Going inside to Derek's living room where he had laid in a pool of his own blood. The signs of a struggle were obvious throughout the house and blood splattered various walls. Forensics were on the scene taking samples from each of the splatters, as if they were going to find a killer from it. There was an officer taking pictures of the large window in the living room where the Dogman had presumably entered, while another officer collected the clumps of fur into evidence bags. When I finally worked up the courage to see my partner one last time, I was focusing all my energy and will not have a mental breakdown. As I approached his body, I knew that he had suffered immensely in his final minutes. His body was crumpled into a heap against the wall, with his pistol still in hand. He wasn't as badly damaged as the first 3 victims, but it was still horrendous nonetheless. There appeared to be large bite marks on his arms and neck, with deep bite marks into his skull. I couldn't stand to look at him anymore, as it only drove my ire into unfathomable depths. When I turned away, Lena was in the doorway. A look of concern and sadness had crossed onto her normally beautiful features. She asked if I was going to be okay. I told her that I didn't know just yet, but I would be just fine for now. I found the sergeant at the scene and asked if Kirsten had been informed yet. He told me that they were waiting until I arrived to make the call. I told him that I would take care of it and asked him to take care of the scene. I motioned for Lena to come over to me, and when she approached, I asked if she could call a clean-up crew to come out as soon as possible to take care of the scene. While she went outside to make the call, I braced myself for one of the most difficult phone calls I would ever have to make. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened my contacts. I was having trouble finding her name through the tears in my eyes. I wiped my eyes and took a deep breath and pressed call. The phone rang until I thought it would go to voicemail when a groggy Kirsten answered. She sounded surprised to hear me on the phone so early, but the surprise turned to trepidation as she questioned why I was calling her. I put on the best soothing voice I could muster and tried to gently break the news that Derek was in fact killed. My voice cracking the more I tried to speak. I could hear Kirsten on the other end pleading with me to tell her that it wasn't true. With tears running down my face, I had to explain to my dead partner's wife that he was really gone. I heard the phone drop as Kirsten wailed uncontrollably. Her sobs still haunt my dreams to this day. The days that followed Derek's death were a cloud of too much booze and not enough sleep. I couldn't be at home, so I stayed with Lena on her couch. She was very understanding, and I couldn't have made it through those dark days really without her support. As Derek's casket was being lowered into the ground, I stood with his wife and daughters as they were clinging on to me. I was nursing a hangover from the non-stop drinking I'd been doing, but I promised myself that I wouldn't drink before his funeral to honour his memory. As the bagpipes began playing Amazing Grace, their shrill tones splitting my already aching head, Kirsten started sobbing as she clutched tighter to my arm. When the girls heard the crying, they began to break down into sobs of their own. Upon hearing those little angels crying so deeply, I knew what I had to do. After the service, I pulled Lena aside and thanked her for being there for me the last few weeks. I hadn't known her barely a month, but I knew I loved her, and I hoped that she felt the same way. She had done so much for me in such a little time. I was hesitant to ask if she would be willing to help me with my plan. When I was through telling her about my plan, she looked at me as though I was crazy, but she answered that she would help me without a doubt. I felt the overwhelming urge to take her in my arms and kiss her, and I did. She kissed me back and said what I hoped to hear. She said, "Let's go hunting." Wow. Hope you guys are enjoying this series as much as me. Of course, please do let me know down below in the comments. As ever, guys, please do like and share. And remember, guys, be safe, not sorry.